All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started just a couple minutes after 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central. We will be recording this, so if any of your team members are going to be coming in late, or if anyone is going to have to leave early, we'll be posting this so everyone can get a copy of it and view the recording at a later time, maybe a little more convenient for you. So my name is Brandon Grant. I'm the marketing director here at QuoteWerks, and I'm also joined with Lori Berry from GreatAmerica. She's the director of vendor strategic technology. Today we're going to be discussing the 5 ways to update your proposals to close more business. We'll go through a couple different options, and then we'll also actually demonstrate how you can use this in QuoteWerks. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Lori from GreatAmerica so she can tell us all about this. Lori?
Thank you, Brandon. So the agenda today is we're going to take you back in time with a remember when, and then we're going to talk about the present with some market observations that we see today. And then we're going to hop into the 5 ways to update your proposals to close more business. And then Brandon, like he said, was going to hop into QuoteWerks and show us how to do those 5 things. Then we'll wrap up with a few more proposal tips for you, and then answer any questions that you have. As you think of questions as we go through, this is where you want to enter them in the go-to meeting or go-to webinar, and we're happy to take those in the order that were received at the end. So first I want to take you back in time, and maybe not as far back as the 8-inch floppy drive here on the picture, but I do want you to think about how you did quotes before you had QuoteWerks. And for those of you who have always had QuoteWerks, consider yourselves lucky and sympathize with those of us who haven't always had it. So my mind goes back to 2003 to 2009. I was working as an account manager for an IT solution provider, and I remember that quotes were painful. We did have an Excel template that we thought was pretty cool. We were pretty proud of it. But now when I think back on how much time those quotes took to do, how much room for human error we had, and just how they looked in general, I shake my head and am happy that we've come such a long way since then. So there have been so many changes in our industry since that time, and thankfully some of those changes include the tools that we use, such as QuoteWerks, and the way that we quote and sell. So if we fast forward then to today, we're going to talk about some of the market observations that we are seeing. And many of you today are selling some type of a monthly recurring service, whether it be cloud product, some type of as a service, or even just your managed services. You're all getting good at selling a payment. And this is important because that is the way the consumption is trending as well. So I have a quote here from the CEO of the channel company, and it reads, "The allure of everything as a service to organizations is largely rooted in the appeal of predictable operational expenses, cost-cutting resource allocation, and access to on-demand pay-as-you-go technology." This quote really states well what we're seeing in the industry today, and we want to talk through a few of those market observations. So GreatAmerica and QuoteWerks both span across different industries, so we're lucky to have the ability to see our channels from a bird's eye view. And what we are seeing goes right along with Bob's quote. The first thing is that monthly recurring revenue is really the name of the game right now. Almost all of you, like I said, are selling a monthly payment. However, we are seeing that most service providers still sell the hardware, software, and installation as a cash sale to their customers. And when the consumption model is changing to be the on-demand IT, we're still finding that most people are selling that cash sale. So we're going to talk through that more today. The other piece is equipment ownership. We're finding that most customers don't want to own the equipment anymore. They're realizing that IT is a depreciating asset and they're treating it as such. So just like they do every other depreciating asset in their business, they are wanting to do a predictable IT budget. They want to have a predictable IT budget with less surprise costs, no huge cash outlays, and many of them have probably gone through the pain of disposal or owning the equipment at the end of term, and they just don't want to deal with that. Next, let's talk about margin, and I'm going to do another remember when quick here. Do you remember when we used to get 20% or more margin on our hardware sales? And I, to be honest, honestly think it's a myth, because even back in 2003, I was only seeing 12% on average. And I know that it's gone down since then. But we want to help you get it back by quoting a payment. And if you take one thing away from today, this is what we want to help you get that margin back. Having control of the equipment also comes along with this, and that leads into the next piece, which is standardization. So there's a big push for service providers like yourselves to standardize their technology stack or the technology that you sell today, and this makes a ton of sense. Imagine for a minute that every customer you support has the same model of PC, laptop, and server, and I know that's not realistic, but just think about if that could happen, what that would do not only to your bottom line and the efficiency of your company, but your technical team's mindset. And then think about the service that your customers would get and the fact that they would all have up-to-date equipment. For so long, IT service providers have tried to be everything to everyone, and we are now seeing a shift there. And I think the shift came when people realized that it doesn't only benefit my business to standardize, but it benefits my client. And when you can talk to your client about that, that's where it's starting to happen. So now that we've took you back and in time and have you thinking about the market today, I want you to think about how you are quoting today. Are you still doing some of the things that you thought about way back when we didn't have QuoteWerks? Or are you taking advantage of a lot of the functionality that QuoteWerks has to offer? So these 5 things are really easy ways to update your quotes and proposals today and help you get your clients saying yes. So we're going to go through all of these in more detail, and then Brandon's going to hop in and show us. But I'm going to run through them really quick. 1 is remove line item pricing. 2, remove the cash price. 3, replace part numbers and technical descriptions with business benefits. 4, include 1 and at the most 2 monthly payment options for your customers. And 5, customize your message. And I also want you to remember that these can be baby steps. You do not have to do these in any certain order. You can do them all at once, or you can do them one at a time. Okay, so the first one is remove line item pricing. And I guarantee as you look at this slide that your eyes go straight to the $37,000 number. And it's human nature, right, to see the big dollar amount, and then we might go back up a little bit and try to find, well, what's the most expensive piece of equipment? You know what, we really don't need 2 servers. I think we only need 1, and we can get by without 10 new tablets. Maybe we'll just get 2, and it's just human nature to, when we see a dollar amount, to start whittling it down. At the same time, we're getting stuck in the numbers. So they're not listening to what you say if you're walking through the quote and talking about what you are providing your customer. So we propose taking off the line item pricing. And it's a baby step, but what that does for you is your client is listening to what you're saying as the business benefits as you go through your quote. They're not getting stuck in the numbers. But I say it's a baby step because then the next piece is to take off the cash price altogether. and lead with a payment. So when you exclude the cash price, you're at that true all-in offering. We call it hardware as a rental, but you're presenting both your recurring revenue amount along with the payment of the hardware, software, and installation. So let's assume on this example that they're already paying you the $2,000 recurring monthly amount. And if you take off the cash price, then you can say, so you're already going to get the great service that you've been getting, but for $2,848.98, you get the same great service, but plus all new hardware. And it's not that you're hiding the cash sale, because you're always going to have that in your back pocket, and there's a lot of ways you can present it. So if they ask, you're going to know what that amount is, and you're absolutely going to tell them. But there's also different ways that you can think about margin here and everything else that goes into it. So when you do this step, you're giving the client the predictable IT budget. You're keeping their equipment up to date. You have the happy techs and customers. But the real beauty goes back to the margin discussion that we had earlier, because we have 25% margin in this number, in our quote. And you're no longer being price shopped with the cash price in there, so you can gain that margin back. The third thing is to replace part numbers and technical descriptions. Most of you are no longer including part numbers in your quotes, but if you are, stop it. The part numbers and everything on this slide screams, please paste me into Google and find a better deal. And that's really just who we are as a society today. We have Priceline.com and Red Laser app, and when we see all of the technical detail and especially part numbers, you might as well just be sending them the barcode that lets them see where they can get that cheaper price. And I know this one's hard for me, because we used to say the more you put in your quote, the better. And as a technical being, we get excited about the smart arrays and the dual quad-core processors and the RAID 5, and we want to tell our clients how awesome it is and what it can do for them. But in all honesty, they don't care. What they do care about is that you listen to them. So hopefully you've done a really good assessment of your client environment and you asked really good questions. And in this example, you can see that in this client, redundancy was important, speed was important, ensuring that their data was safe and accessible from anywhere. And so you want to put everything that you learned from that client and the business needs on your quote, so it tells a story about why you're putting in this piece of hardware. The fourth one is include monthly payment options. So even if you don't take any of the other tips, but you put a payment at the bottom of every quote, I guarantee you're going to fall into 1 out of 15 or 20 finance sales. And not only fall into a couple that are finance sales, but you're actually going to close more cash sales because you're giving your customer an option. And most importantly, you're not going to lose the deal because your competitor did offer a payment and you didn't. In my opinion, when you're first starting out with quoting a payment, is just start with one, and start with the one that's the best for your customer. So if 48 months is the best option for their budget or for the equipment that you're providing, then go with that one and stick with it, because you're the expert and you want to go in doing what's best for them and for your company. And the last one, and this is my favorite, is customize your message. So today, if you turn on the leasing functionality in QuoteWerks, this is what you'll see. This is the way that it prints out. But QuoteWerks gives us the ability to change this message. It can get lengthy. It's a little redundant because it has the 35,000, which you already have in the total section. So what we recommend is to make this your own and simplify it greatly. So I called it GreatAmerica Financing. You could call it whatever your program is, your managed service program, or just your company name finance option, or you can leave it GreatAmerica Finance option. And I took it down to 48 monthly payments of $848.98. You can leave in the purchase option. You can make this look however you want, and you can add words to the end or the beginning. But the point is, keep it simple and easy to talk about. So when you get comfortable talking about this option for your client, then you could think about adding a couple more if you think they're interested. So now let's hop in to QuoteWerks and see how it's done.
All right, thanks, Lori. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to run through a demonstration of how to actually act on these 5 tips from this webinar. So the first one is about removing line item pricing, because what we're trying to do here is just simplify this for the customer, make it a little easier for them to make a purchasing decision and hopefully purchase from you. So one of the nice features about QuoteWerks is being able to make customizations on the fly on your document. So you can see here, I do have a quote open and pretty much ready to send to the customer. So let's go ahead and preview it before I make any changes. So I'm going to click on my Deliver icon, select my layout, and then click Preview. So this is going to load my initial quote. So I haven't made any adjustments to it. I haven't taken into any of the steps so far that we're presenting today. So you can see we do have our prices on here for each of the items. We have our technical description, and then we also have our summary amount at the bottom. So although the quote looks fine, it is a little busy, so it would help to kind of clean it up and streamline it a little bit for the customer. So we can do that very easily in QuoteWerks, where you can make some minor modifications and quickly send this to the customer without having to do too much work. So the first thing is, let's go ahead and remove the line item pricing from our individual items. To do that in QuoteWerks, if you want to do it on all your items, you can simply do a Select All. So you can either hit Control-A on your keyboard or right-click and choose Select All, and that'll select all of your items. And then again, right-click, scroll down to where you see Edit Line Attributes, and then we're going to change this very simple attribute from Hide Price from No to Yes. So we're going to hide the individual prices now. So we made that change. Anytime you make that change in QuoteWerks, you'll see your pricing is grayed out now on the document item screen. So let's go back and preview our document. We'll select our layout, preview, and then you'll see here our pricing is now hidden from the customer. So this is what the customer would see. So the document looks a lot better already. There's not quite the sticker shock that they would initially get, especially for some of the more expensive items that are on the document. But they're still seeing that subtotal information at the bottom. So let's go ahead and streamline this a little bit more for them. So the next thing that you can do is actually remove the cash price, or kind of like the summary total at the bottom. Now, there's a couple different options and ways you can do this in QuoteWerks, as with most things. But one of the easiest is to clone your layout, so make a copy of it, and then just remove those subtotal and grand total fields from the bottom of it. If you're interested on the actual steps on how to do this, just contact us after the webinar, and we'll walk you through it. It's very simple. But the reason we recommend going this route is that now you can actually have 2 layouts. You can have one that actually shows your cash price, and you can have one that has your finance option. This gives you the flexibility when presenting to the customer that you can actually choose which option you want to send them. I know there's a lot of corporations out there who still expect to have a line item document with a total at the bottom before they'll make any payments, specifically for accounting or invoicing. So you can still have this option available, but for those companies, a majority of them that like just being able to pay a single monthly price, you can still have your other option. You can have your finance option. So I'm going to go ahead and select this option now, so my finance layout, and click Preview. And then you'll see in here, as we get down to the bottom, it's only showing my deposit, and then if I had any recurring amounts, in this case I just have my one recurring service on the document. So it's already cleaned up a lot, and it makes it a little easier for the customer to review it and kind of decide on if they're going to go this way or not. The next option we have is being able to replace the part numbers and changing descriptions of your items. So by default in QuoteWerks, we never show part numbers. We actually agree with Lori, and what she said is that you shouldn't show part numbers to your customer because they will simply copy and paste that part number into Google, see how much they can find it for on Amazon or Newegg or wherever you're purchasing items from. So it makes it very easy for the consumer to price shop you. So by default, we never show those part numbers, but you can modify your documents to show them if you absolutely want to. Again, we're not recommending doing that. But one of the nice things about QuoteWerks is that you can make the changes to the items themselves if you want to simplify a description. So if you look in my description here, if I double-click, this opens up my description window for this item. I could actually just kind of shorten this description. The customer doesn't need all this information. You know, if they're a very tech-savvy person, they may be interested in it. But for the most part, most customers, you can just let them know, hey, it's going to be a 15-inch notebook, and we can hit OK. And it's that easy to make changes to your description. So if you're pulling items from the distributors or any vendor that you've set up in QuoteWerks, as you're selecting those items and as you have those descriptions, you can modify them on a per quote basis for your customer based on how technical or non-technical they are. We also have the ability to add additional information on your items. So if you want to provide maybe some non-tech information to the customer, just kind of let them know what the item's about, you can do this with different columns. I've actually renamed a column in QuoteWerks to business benefits, so the customer can actually see the benefits of this particular item and why they might want to purchase it. And it's just one sentence that just kind of adds a little bit more information to this part. That way the customer can actually get a feel for why they might want this particular item. So if we go back into our preview, you can see this is just adding a little more and kind of adds a salesy side of things to these items on your document. So it just kind of makes it look a little nicer and gives the customer a little more information than just a tech description of your particular items on the document. So all those features have already been available in QuoteWerks. Those are things that you could be using right now. One of the new features we released was this integration with GreatAmerica, so we can actually calculate your lease payment without you having to bust out the calculator or contact your GreatAmerica rep. You can actually just do it straight from QuoteWerks. So the way we're going to do this is once you've built your quote, you're going to click on your Sale Info tab in QuoteWerks, and then you'll see there's a new box here if you just upgraded or you're just getting on 5.0. You'll see there's a payment options, and at the bottom corner there's an option for Add Lease Payment Options. So we're going to take Lori's advice and we're going to go ahead and add a couple payment options to give to the customer. We don't want to overwhelm them with too many, but you'll see that we're going to have quite a few different options to select from. So by default, I have mine set up where I want to offer my customer the 12, 24, and 36 options, but you can see they're just checkboxes and you can make your different selections. So maybe we want to give the customer a 24 option, 36, and 48. You can then choose your purchase options. You do need to select one of these if it's a $1 lease or a fair market value lease. For our case, we're going to go ahead and do fair market value. And then you can choose if they're going to have an advanced payment option. Again, you will need to select at least one of these here. So we're going to go ahead and say 0 at that point. You can also add additional points. So if you want to mark it up even more and add points onto that lease, you're able to do that here. Once you've set your selections, simply click on Get Lease Payments, and this will go out to GreatAmerica. And this is actually going to use your credentials in real time and get your rate card information and pull that back into QuoteWerks for you. And then you'll see here, this came back with my 3 different results for my 24-month, 36, and 48-month lease. And now I can select which ones I'd like to add to the document. So if I only want to give the customer 2, maybe I've had a couple more discussions and decided that I really just want to give them a 2 or 3-year option, I can make those selections. So I don't actually have to select the 4-year option as well. And when you're ready to add it to the document, simply click on Add Selected Payment Options to the quote. And now you'll see that they're here on your payment options. If you want to specify which one the customer selected, maybe the customer's already decided, hey, I want to go with the 24-month lease, but go ahead and show me the option for the 36-month lease just so I can see what the price difference would be. You can have one pre-selected for the customer, but the other one will still show up on the document. And to select it, all you need to do is double-click on it, and you'll see it'll actually turn it green for you so you know it has been selected for that particular customer. So if we go back to our Document Items tab, now we can actually go back to our layout in QuoteWerks. We're ready to send this to them. So let's go ahead and preview this before we deliver it to the customer and see what it's going to look like now. So now at the bottom here, you can actually see we're going to have our 2 different options, and we've simplified the description so it's very easy for the customer to see. So they can see how much their deposit's going to be if there is one required, how much their recurring amount is, and what their lease payment option would be. And again, there's a little X next to the one that we had selected. If I had selected the 36 option one, then that would go ahead, that would have the X here and show that that one was selected. So it's very flexible and it makes changes very easy. Now, one thing that's really nice about this integration is that it's going to remind you if you need to make a change, so if you need to update it. So if you're talking to your customer, you delivered it to the customer, and they come back to you and say, okay, let's go ahead and do that, but can you change the quantities to 4 for these items? Let's go ahead and select a couple of these items here. We're going to right-click and choose Apply Quantity. We're going to change it to 4 across the board. Now, QuoteWerks is going to remind you, say, hey, you selected GreatAmerica as your real-time leasing information. You need to refresh the payment. So you can actually do that by clicking on the Sale Info tab, and then you'll see there's a Refresh Lease Payment option here. Click on that, and you don't have to go reselect your items. You don't have to reselect your different settings. It'll use whatever you have here, and then you can refresh them. If you do want to change them, though, you can click on the Change Lease Payment option, and then this will let you go through and select a different option to display to your customer. So we went ahead and refreshed it. Looks good. Let's go ahead and deliver it to the customer, and then I can click Preview from here. If you hadn't also refreshed it there, when you go to preview it, QuoteWerks will pop up a message and let you know that says, hey, you didn't refresh it. Do you want to refresh it before you preview it? Go ahead and hit yes. So if you do forget to refresh it, QuoteWerks will remind you again. So you'll actually get 2 reminders from us. So here's our new lease payment options. They are available on the quote to the customer, and now we're ready to actually deliver to the customer so they can make their decision. If anyone's using Quote Valet, when you deliver the quote via Quote Valet, the customer will be able to select between the 2 different options. So if they would want to select the first lease payment option or the second, or if you have another one on there, they'll be able to actually choose which lease payment option they want. And then the last part of that message is actually changing the text in the message. So let's go back to the layout real quick. Let's just preview it one more time. So I had customized the description just to make it a little cleaner and easy for the customer to understand. However, if you wanted to change it to the default message that Lori showed, or if you wanted to change it to something else, you can do that in QuoteWerks. Simply click on Tools, Options, and then we're going to click on our Leasing tab. And then you'll see this is not only where you set the defaults for your leasing integration, so you can actually set those term options and purchase options as well as your advanced payment options. But this is also where you can change that macro information. So if you want to change the display macro to something else, to read as something different, you can make that adjustment here. If you want to go back to the way it was, the original text that Lori originally showed in the PowerPoint slides, you can click on this arrow here, and it'll reset to the default macro. So if you do make changes to it and you realize you misspelled something or you removed part of the field that you wanted to include and you can't remember what it looked like, you can always click here, and this will reset it to that default macro. A couple things to note before we move on is that once you've made the change to the macro, that change is automatic, so you don't have to refresh anything. However, you will want to make sure you have added the payment macro to your QuoteWerks layout. We do have a couple layouts on the website that already have the macro in place. So if you go to the QuoteWerks website and go to our leasing page, you'll actually be able to download a layout that already has the macro set for you. If not, you can edit your layout and add the macro. It's fairly straightforward, but if you do have questions, you're always welcome to give us a call or send us an email. We'd be happy to show you how to do that. So following those 5 easy steps, you can see how you can actually take the information from this webinar and turn them into action items in QuoteWerks. A lot of the information you're probably already using and you're probably already doing, so it's just a matter of just kind of putting them together and making a quick couple edits on the document, on your Document Items tab and in your layout to display to the customer those finance options, those monthly options that a lot of customers are looking for now. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Lori, and she's going to continue with some of the other tips for proposals now.
Thanks, Brandon. Okay. So we're going to just wrap up with just a few more tips, just to make sure that you get something out of today. The first one is meet with the right person and solve their business issues. So everything that we went over today doesn't work unless you're meeting with the decision maker or C-level. and that they're the only ones that can sign on the bottom line. And a lot of times when you are talking price and moving to a different model of consumption, you want to make sure you're talking to the decision level anyway. And then really important to talk to their level. So take out the technical jargon, but listen to them and make sure you know what technical level they are, because if they are technical, you know this stuff, and then we can talk about the exciting technical stuff that we took out. And then make sure to simplify the message. So make it really easy to say yes. Instead of offering 10 options, offer 1 or 2, and you are the expert. So lead with a payment, have the cash price in your back pocket. And I didn't talk too much about that, but we have a lot of ways to present that payment and a lot of different programs that GreatAmerica has to offer. So make sure you talk to us afterwards about your program. Like Brandon said, we build your program, and then QuoteWerks pulls in your rates real time. And we want to make sure that the options that you're presenting to your customers work for both your business and your customers. So we have a lot of great questions, and I'm going to wrap up with the last slide of tell the story. So when you think about your quotes, make sure that that they can by themselves tell the story to your client about where they are today, and then where you want to take them in the future and where they want to be in the future regarding technology. So think about it as a book, and you're telling them the story so that they can understand where you're taking them, kind of like a timeline. So I like to go with the rule of the 4 Ps. First, when you're listening to them, focus anything that's painful to them is going to be your fastest sale. So if it hurts, if it's broken, and if they're having pain, the decision is going to be quick and easy. If there's no pain, then focus on where they're passionate. Like we said before, we knew that this client was redundancy was important. The remote workers getting to the information from anywhere is important. So focus on those things. And what I didn't say on the business benefits slide is don't put anything in there that they don't think is important, or they'll think that you just put a canned response or a canned description in there that you use for everyone. So I've even gone to the level of putting names in. So you said that Bob was having trouble with this, and this will solve this problem. And then if you can't find any pain or passion in the environment, then productivity and profitability are always good fallbacks. So you can always go to that. And we have a lot of really great questions coming in. So hopefully you got a lot out of this, and Brandon did a really great job of showing you how, and you could see how easy it is. So please take time to ask the questions that you haven't already, and I'm going to get started and go through some of those. So the first one is from William, and his question is, does GreatAmerica allow financing to be white label? And the answer is yes. We have what we call a private label program, and we have what we call a signature label program, and then we have your straightforward financing. So to be private label, you just have to get approved. And we put all of our customers through an approval process, and it's one sheet, it's painless, but then you can decide whether you want to do white label or not, and we can tell you the benefits of each program. The second one is from Vicki, and it's asking what the $2,000 recurring amount was on the quote. That's a good question. I apologize, I didn't explain that. We were pretending that that was the managed service. So $2,000 a month is a pretty standard managed service amount that people charge. And so the really nice thing about GreatAmerica is we can bundle in the recurring amount to your payment, or bill and collect that on your behalf. So say the equipment payment was that $848 that we had in that example. If you wanted to take this a step further, so you're not only quoting your services and the payment together, but you wanted to take it a step further and wanted to bill your client to receive a one invoice solution, GreatAmerica can bill and collect that $2,000 for you on your behalf and pass it through to you. And it's not part of the financed amount. So hopefully that answered that question. If not, you can send in another one. This one is also from Vicki. Was monthly recurring of $248.40 entered manually, or did it pull from the quote? So Brandon, that was on yours, the $248.40 that showed up on the bottom. So do you mind taking that one?
Sure. Yeah, that was just another line item on the document. So I'd actually set up a recurring service on the document as $248. That could be a service that you had predefined in QuoteWerks. It could be an item that you manually added. It's going to be up to you how you wanted to put that on the document, but it is something that was added as a specific line item on the quote.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then we have one from Juan that says, let's say customer agrees to lease. What now? Do we get parts and labor up front? Does the customer have to approve when we get paid? That's another good question. So that also, just like the private label, depends on what program you put together. The norm is to fund 50% up front, which usually covers the equipment part, and then 50% upon installation. And so we give the customer or the lessee a call on your behalf to make sure the equipment's installed, and then they're happy, and then we start the invoice process from there. So you get 50% up front, and we can go higher than that depending on the deal, and it doesn't have to be the same every time. So great question. And then there's a lot, there's steps, and it's they agree to the lease, what now? So we would get documents signed, and Brandon's going to talk about some upcoming features that are going to be within QuoteWerks. And but it's an easy process too, and we walk you through that when you onboard with us. Okay, we have one from Susan and Vicki. What happens to the lease payment if customer changes options in Quote Valet? I'm going to let you take that one, Brandon.
That's a really good question. If your customer selects a different option in Quote Valet, QuoteWerks will basically sync with Quote Valet, and it'll change the selection in QuoteWerks. So if you gave your customer a couple different options, and you gave them, option 1, and they selected option 2, when you open up that quote in QuoteWerks, QuoteWerks always checks Quote Valet for any document changes. So if the customer selected that option, it'll go ahead and change it in QuoteWerks for you as well, so you know which option they did select.
Okay, and they wondered what happens to the lease payment if it's showing up on Quote Valet. Does that change when they select something different?
It does. That'll actually automatically update and recalculate if necessary.
Beautiful. That's what I thought. Okay, so now we have one from Randy. What field was converted to business benefit?
I used the custom text 01 field on that, but you could really use any field that you wanted to.
Okay, and you showed them where to get to that custom field, the custom fields?
I didn't, but it's under View, Customize Columns in the QuoteWerks software. So if you click on the View menu, there's an option that says Customize Columns, and then you can move, rename, and hide fields as needed.
Perfect. Yeah, I found that field just being there very helpful to just get me to remember to do that step. Thank you. And then Susan says, how to get started with GreatAmerica. So contact information on the screen. If you call in, you get to our team that's dedicated to data, or IT, and we'll start you by filling out what we call a vendor information request form, and it's just a one-page document. And it's a one-time process for you to get started. So from that process, you actually get what we call a dealer ID, and that's how you turn the functionality on in QuoteWerks. So give us a call or shoot us an email, and we'll get you set up. What exactly does terms mean? And can you put credit card and lease payment on the same quote? Okay, so I'm going to do terms question first. terms in our world are the amount of months in the finance agreement. So as you saw when Brandon pulled up the screen of all the inputs that you can check, that screen is customizable. So that also pulls directly from your program that we set up. So if you don't want your whole team or all of your reps to see the 12-month option, we could change that so it just says 48 and 60 if those are your most common. QuoteWerks also gives you the ability to set defaults, which is really nice. Then you don't have to do so many clicks because it's going to come up automatically checked on the 36-month if that's your most common, or the 60 if that's your most common. Hopefully that answers the terms question. And then can you put credit card and lease payment on the same quote? And that I don't know either. Brandon, is that one you can take?
Yeah, actually that is an option. So if you do want to provide your customer the option to pay with a credit card, you can set that as another payment option on that sale info tab. There's actually just a button right above the Get Lease Payments option that says Add Payment Option, and you can click on that, and that will let you select credit card to add to the document. So yes, you can offer the different payment options of financing or with a credit card.
Perfect. I believe in that same section you can do, there's another option besides credit card? Maybe
yes,
full payment?
Yeah, you can add credit card or terms as different payment options to the leasing if you wanted to.
Okay, perfect. And then from William we have, can you expand on how points work? Sure, so when I think about it, we're going to calculate a payment based on the pieces that you select, so term, purchase option, and the dollar amount. And then if you want to add points into the deal, that's really your money, and each point is a percentage of the total. So you can put that in a pool and use it as a marketing fund. You can actually have a specific rep get that as a spiff. Some people have done it that way. It's really additional points on top of the payment that we present or that we calculate. What you want to take into consideration is the competition, so it does increase your payment when you do add points. So if it's a competitive situation, then you just want to make sure you don't add too many. And then we can also customize that so you don't see the points fields or it says 0 on this end. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay, Vicki says, was it stated on the quote template that customer is subject to credit approval? That's a good question too. We recommend that in the T's and C's, I believe one of the options, or one of our templates did, but in the T's and C's that we have some language that we can send to you, and we do say subject to credit approval. Brandon, I don't know if you can talk about the credit approval process.
Sure.
That maybe may or may not be coming.
Yeah, I mean, two things on that. Yes, you can add that. We actually did have that verbiage on our quote, so that can be on the layout by default. That way, if you do add a finance option, it shows up on the layout for you. Or, like Lori said, if you wanted to add it as a just terms and conditions as a document, you could attach it to your quote in QuoteWerks that way as well. We are looking to expand the leasing integration with GreatAmerica, where we'll actually be able to submit the credit application through QuoteWerks. So that's on development's roadmap. I don't have an exact time frame for you on that, but that is something that we're looking to be able to automate through QuoteWerks.
We're really excited about that. That's a good question because the subject to credit approval is one piece, and then I didn't go into it too much, but the taxes are not included in the quote. You have the ability to, but GreatAmerica needs it to be without the taxes for many different reasons because all the states are different. But you could also put in there that document fees are not included and taxes are subject to change, so something around that, both the credit approval process, taxes, and then fees. in your T's and C's. So then we have, what if we bundle and then customer terminates managed services? Another great question. So we bill and collect on your behalf that the managed services portion, but it's many times broken out on the invoice. So we could continue to bill and collect. We want to make sure that they know that the finance amount, the hardware is a payment that they need to make, but they can terminate the managed services if they want, and then we would just stop billing that, let's say the $2,000 a month. So hopefully that answers that question. Now we have lease and hardware as a rental have different rates, so are both on the quote. How to make that work? Randy, okay, beautiful. Okay, so we have different rate cards. So in the example, there may have been just one that was dropped down, but you can have different programs. You can have what we call the standard lease rate card, and then your hardware as a rental program, and then you can choose options from both, just like you can put credit card terms on there with the finance options. So you could do, yes, basically you can do both. So what you do is you go into add lease payments, you choose the first rate card, the standard rate card, make your selections, add it to the quote, and then you can go back and add another rate card with different terms. Brandon, does that make sense? Do you have anything to add on that one?
No, you're exactly right. That's exactly how you would do it. Yeah, I didn't show how to switch the rate cards, but if you do have the multiple rate cards, it's just a simple drop down, and you just select which rate card you would like to pull from for that specific example.
Okay. Sounds good. So we already did the bundle, and then the question, how are payouts processed? So I had a lease, and we didn't get paid for 3 months. So William, I might need more information from you on that question, but payouts are processed. I'm hoping you mean at the end of term. So there's different purchase options at the end of term, and I'm not sure what that one's. Maybe we can take that one offline, and we'll chat about it. So that's all of the questions that we have. Sorry about that, William. I'm happy to talk to you afterwards and just get a better understanding for what you mean. Brandon, do you have any last questions or anything else that we needed to cover today?
No, I mean, I hope it was helpful for everyone. You can see the QuoteWerks contact information up on the screen. So if you do have questions about using the leasing integration or how to set it up in QuoteWerks, or even just getting the correct macro in your layout, feel free to contact us directly. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have about this.
Thank you all so much for coming today, and hopefully we'll talk to you all soon. Have a great day.